Good afternoon. My name is Robin Kincaid, and I'm from Nevada PEP. And I want to thank you for being part of our webinar today. We're very excited to have the opportunity to talk about employment for young adults and students with disabilities. So our title today is Getting the First Job. And we hope that you'll find this information to be helpful and that you'll be able to support your young adult as they are transitioning to the world of work and learning how to be able to take direction from another adult and be able to transition from the school expectations to the workforce expectations. So thanks for being here today. Nevada PEP is a parent training and information center. We are covering the entire state of Nevada, and we have been around for and are celebrating over 25 years of excellence. Get the slide to move here. So we like to start off by explaining that the word PEP, P-E-P, represents parents empowering parents, parents educating parents, and parents encouraging parents. I'm a parent of a young adult, and the other staff that work here are a parent or a close relative of a child with a disability, or they have a disability themselves. One of our latest projects is I Care, We Care, where we're really working to promote this bullying prevention materials and information and supporting families who may have a child that has experienced bullying. We also have free archived webinars. We encourage you to go back and look at some of those. They're on our website. You can look at those anytime and anywhere that you have access online. And we offer regular trainings. So please visit our website, nvpep.org, to have the opportunity to be able to attend another training, a training that might help you. Nevada PEP is helping families that have children ages 0 to 26. And we are here to help families, for the long term and be a source of support to families as they navigate what certainly could be termed as difficult times right now. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and so it might be odd to be talking about employment. However, it is important that we continue to prepare and to help our youth be able to develop the skills necessary in order to become employees even during this difficult time. So we're going to transition out of this and move to our PowerPoint today. I'll stop showing my screen for just a moment. Okay, let's see if we can get the screen back up. All right, I'm just going to verify that you can see our screen. Here we go. Very good. Okay, here's our mission: to increase the opportunities for home, community, and school success for children with disabilities, including those who are at risk or who have serious emotional disturbances, their families, and their service providers through education, encouragement, and empowerment activities. So providing webinars and information to families about employment and preparing a youth with a disability for employment is part of the activities that are important to families. Often families experience some sense of loss even when their children transition out of high school. And so we want to give them more tools and ways that they can help their child develop the activities and things that help their child continue to mature and grow. So this workshop is designed to help families understand maybe the realities of employment for all youth, with a special emphasis on strategies youth with disabilities can use to improve their employment prospects. This is our agenda that we're going to go through today. So we're going to talk about the importance of work. Why is work even important? Why should we work so hard to help youth be able to have employment? And what some youth with disabilities experience as they attempt to enter the job market, the crucial roles self-awareness, career planning, and families play in the process. Descriptions of possible pitfalls in the employment process. Suggestions for increasing the likelihood of being hired, and some tips for continuing to be able to have employment. We also are going to talk about resumes, being interviewed, and identifying job accommodations if necessary. Also deciding whether or not to disclose a disability to an employer. We should all have high expectations for the employment of youth with disabilities, and that begins by expecting all youth to build work skills and bring, good attitude and approach to the job search. So let's look at employment. This quote at the bottom of your slide is talking about from Larry Kottering from the Appalachian State University, is saying that all people have skills that can lead to employment. Employment is possible for all people. It is critical that families set high expectations for youth with disabilities and expect that they can work, be lifelong learners, and live independently. So actually on your slide says every youth has some skill that if nurtured will provide them the opportunity to make money for the rest of their life. Statistics indicate that employment of people with disabilities is a critical issue. According to every statistical measure on disability employment in America, including the monthly disability employment statistics published by the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment, ODEP, adults with disabilities are 2.5 times more likely to experience unemployment or underemployment as their peers without disabilities. Underemployment refers to people who are currently employed but are working fewer hours than they wish, or working at jobs that don't meet their level of education, skill, or experience. Studies suggest that youth who have meaningful work experiences in school have some type of post-secondary education or training, and who have families involved in their lives as teenagers experience increased employment outcomes as adults. Meaningful work experience refer to paid or unpaid exposure to jobs that align closely to the youth's skills and interests. So why is work important? Think about your own experiences as a young adult. Do you remember your first job? Do you remember a variety of jobs? Do you remember your experience as an employee? Think about that for just a moment as we go through some of this information. Traditionally, employment has been the main method people use to achieve self-sufficiency and maintain connections to their community. Society hasn't always held the high expectation that people with disabilities should be employed. In fact, just the opposite. There's almost an expectation that they should not work. But we know that work is more than just making money. It provides a feeling of worth by contributing to society. People often define their contribution to the world around them through the work they do. That contribution may be to work at a job that is seen as meaningful, or to be part of a team, or to simply provide for yourself and those you love. Meaningful days. What is your reason for waking up every morning? Often the answer is to go to work. Without employment, people with disabilities may struggle to give structure to their days. Families need to consider what their youth will be doing as an adult to give meaning to their life. A place to learn social skills and responsibility. The workplace is often an opportunity for a young person to learn how to be responsible and to interact with others appropriately and learn how to work as a team. It's also a way to combat isolation and depression. Once youth with disabilities leave high school, they often lose touch with their peers and friends. Many adults with disabilities struggle with the feeling of isolation and depression as well because they are not connected to an ongoing social network. Employment can help people with disabilities maintain important interpersonal connections and networks. Our role in the adult world. In our society, it is expected that adults will work. Think of the last time you were in a social situation where you met new people. Chances are one of the first questions you would ask a new person you meet is, what do you do? Too many people with disabilities don't really have an answer to that question. So we can help youth prepare for and maintain employment by first understanding what the common barriers are. This is not meant to discourage youth and families. Rather, it's meant to empower youth and families with the knowledge needed to avoid common mistakes. Youth are unable to find or keep jobs that often don't, meet their strength or interests. Often youth with disabilities are placed into jobs or work experiences that don't match their strengths and interests. Their placement may be done through a school work experience program or through an employment services provider. Many times the result of this poor job match is a disappointing employment experience or the loss of the job altogether. We all seek to work in jobs that match what we like to do. Families can advocate for appropriate job settings based on their knowledge of their youth. So an example of that might be that a youth that is kind of pushed into working at a discount center that they don't normally go to, maybe it's some kind of a dollar store, or youth that end up working in a thrift shop and have no interest in any kind of shopping like that. And they're just placed there because we place all of the youth with disabilities at these locations. That's really not appropriate. The location and the type of work that a youth gains experience or demonstrates their ability to work should be something that matches their interest level. Waiting for services after a high school, students may qualify for adult employment services such as supported employment through vocational rehabilitation. Unfortunately, there are often some waiting periods when a person may be waiting for the services to assist them or help them find a job. Families can work with the service provider to cultivate job opportunities. Youth can concurrently be exploring employment options while they're a certainly a client or customer or person that is receiving an employment service such as vocational rehabilitation or even some kind of job searching service. So let's talk about disclosing the disability. Many disability employment programs are based on the customer openly disclosing that they have a disability. If the youth are not knowledgeable about their disability or deny even having a disability, then these programs will have a tougher time being successful. It is necessary for youth to disclose their disability to an employer if they're seeking some job accommodations. It may not always be necessary to disclose a disability, but knowing how to talk about a disability is a good skill to have. So I know that my own daughter has to often describe some of the accommodations that she might need. So she might be a youth with disability that explains that she struggles with staying focused or attention, and she has to use some different strategies. So the youth that can talk about their disability, but also talk about what helps them stay organized and be able to compensate for some of the difficulty they have, are the type of employees that many employers want to hire. We're going to talk about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is also known as WIOA. With the passage of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act on July 22nd, 2014, youth with disabilities now have more opportunities for employment. Some major highlights include the efforts intended to limit the use of sub-minimum wage. So this particular act really discourages the expanded use of employers creating programs where they are only providing, sub-minimum wage opportunities, which would be wages less than the expected federal wage earner per hour. A definition of customized employment is also part of the WIOA in federal statute, and an updated definition of supported employment that includes customized employment. A definition for competitive integrated employment is also included in the Act. The increased use of the one-stop career centers in meeting the needs of people with disabilities, and also maybe a stronger vocational rehabilitation involvement in helping persons with disabilities obtain employment. Let's talk about customized employment for just a moment. It's defined as competitive integrated employment for an individual with a significant disability that is designed to meet specific abilities for the individual with a disability and the business needs of the employer carried out through flexible strategies. Supported employment, that is integrated competitive employment, an important term if you are describing the needs of youth with disabilities. We often refer back to the term integrated competitive employment. And it is an individual working, on a short-term basis in an integrated employment setting. It could be in a long-term basis, but it is a situation where the person is receiving competitive wages and there are people there with and without disabilities. So the full or part-time competitive integrated employment, and these people are receiving wages and benefits similar to those without disabilities and are performing the same work and are fully integrated with their coworkers that do not have disabilities. I want to mention the American Job Centers because we briefly mentioned a few moments ago. The WIOA reinforces the partnership and strategies necessary for one-stops to provide job seekers and workers with high-quality career services, education, training, and supportive services that they need to get good jobs and stay employed, and to help businesses find skilled workers and access other supports, including education and training for the current workforce. So vocational rehabilitation involvement also includes the important pre-employment transition services, the PREETs, and those are all students with disabilities that may be attending high school. So this is an age group of 16 to age 24, and a vocational rehabilitation would contract out with the school districts in many instances to reach these students to teach them about pre-employment skills, provide information about job exploration, and counseling on enrollment in like comprehensive transition or post-secondary educational programs. PREANCE is a very important part of transition services for youth with disabilities. And there is a tremendous effort nationwide to expand those services so that students are getting information and learning, once again, how to make that transition to be an employee. So today's labor market is a very difficult market for persons with and without disabilities. The current economic downtrend with the pandemic has made things very difficult. But the job search should be approached in a very individualized manner. Families who are aware about the realities of the world of work are better able to assist their youth no matter what disability the youth may experience. Certainly there are information about entry-level jobs. This is sometimes the young person's first experience with employment. There is a strong competition for jobs that are often seen as entry-level. So the entry level is starting to fade. Most jobs require some advanced level of technical or computer expertise, customer relations skills, and organization. In the past, a person could be hired at a large retailer to stock shelves, and that might be their only duty, but we're seeing that the expectation in a lot of retail positions is that you have those additional skills, that you can help a customer in the aisleway, or you can be able to respond to a manager's request to help in a situation. So you have to be somewhat versatile in your experience and your ability to carry out tasks. Cross-training is another expectation that employers might require. And so a person who works in a retail situation might have to be able to use a cash register as well as, do inventory, or be able to do a variety of jobs that are needed in the store. Summer months have generally been a time where young people have found jobs. Summer employment for all youth in recent years has been in the lowest point since statistics been kept since around 1950. Summer employment rates are especially bleak for minority youth. Interpersonal skills. Many employers say that they will hire a good attitude and teach the job skills later. This means a young person with a neat appearance and good attitude has a better chance of being hired than a young person who is dressed inappropriately or comes across with kind of a poor attitude. Employers want employees who will work well with their existing team and bring the skills necessary to accomplish the tasks required in the business. Families can help their youth develop the proper attitude and appearance. Helping youth with disabilities often see how they are actually appearing to other adults is an important skill that parents can help with. As baby boomers age, there is expected that there is a labor shortage. And often right now during the pandemic, the labor shortage is certainly related to the fact that so many businesses have been closing, or due to the public not being able to access certain kinds of businesses because of the fact that they are operating under crowds, or that there's not ways to do social distancing, is really affected the amount of jobs and the availability of jobs. And so that's something that our youth are going to see equally. Persons with and without disabilities are also experiencing that. Just want to pause for just a moment to remind you that there is a question pane And we want to encourage you to ask questions. We are certainly ready to take them. Also, there's a handout in your go-to webinar pane as well, and you'll find 5 different files there, multiple handouts in each file, so that you can download those right out of the pane and take a look at those. It is important to take a look at some of this information so that you can support your youth and be ready to inspire, confidence and encourage them to be able to tackle the job market. Often confidence and the youth's concern about how they can perform in the world of work can be very overwhelming and almost frightening to some youth. So we have to find ways to encourage youth that they can do this and that work is a way to be able to build a life that allows for learning and for even meaningful work and meaningful service. We talked about the issues of employment for youth with disabilities. Now we're going to talk about some strategies that can help young people become employed. These are some topics that we're going to break down and talk about in the next few slides. So it does all begin with self-awareness. A disability does not define who a person is. In other words, if a person has, for example, cerebral palsy, that doesn't define them as a person. It just is the condition that they might be experiencing and that they have theoretically probably happened at a very, very young age. But it can have a great impact on the person's ability to learn, work, or interact socially. Although we have come a long way in recognizing the strengths and abilities of people with disabilities, many young people still fear the stigma of being labeled as having a disability. Some young people may deny they have a disability or might not be ready to openly discuss their disability with others. Also, knowing how their disability affects them is another important area of self-awareness that we want to mention. So families should help their youth understand what their disability is and how it impacts them in different areas of their life. Once youth know what their disability is, they should be encouraged to practice discussing their disability with others. This is not to say that youth need to have this discussion with everyone they meet, but certain situations, such as maybe an IEP meeting or when discussing job accommodations, this skill is crucial. In some cases, youth may struggle in school or work without being aware of the cause. When empowered with the knowledge about their disability, youth can begin to advocate for the things they need. Often the accommodations for disability in education or the workplace are simple and can lead to success. I know one of the things that my daughter has really benefited from is the ability to help develop her own accommodations. So for example, if she needs a particular code to check in order for her to sign in on her work clock or workday program, then she has a card that she can quickly access in order to remind her of the necessary code. As we talk about career planning, it doesn't mean it's a complicated process full of tests and evaluations. Career planning simply means a process by which a youth with a disability discuss the types of jobs they're interested in and how their disability might impact those interests. These days, youth need to explore careers they might be interested in and utilize school, service providers, and families to help plan for achieving employment in that area. So why do we do career planning? Well, it's to avoid poor job matches. Having a career planning discussion can help families learn how their youth are thinking about employment. What do they hope for, and what kinds of jobs interest them? This information can be communicated to the school's work experience staff or employment service providers to ensure youth are placed in jobs that match their skill and needs. Families can use knowledge gained from the career planning discussion to identify academic coursework or work experiences that can be integrated into the youth's IEP. Many adult service providers also utilize a plan to guide a person's programming. Whether the plan is for high school or the adult service world, families need to ask if their person writing the plan knows enough about their son or daughter. Families need to use their own expertise to improve the planning process. So, what if a family has a discussion about career planning with their youth, only to learn that their child isn't even interested in working or thinks he or she doesn't have to work? It's better to kind of know this information earlier than later. If the youth displays an inappropriate view of the need to work or vocalizes a career goal that seems unobtainable, families can take steps to steer the youth in the right direction. We also have to recognize that all individuals mature at a different rate and at different ages. And sometimes kids need a little more time to be able to gain a level of maturity that starts helping them work on those self-awareness skills. An example might be if a young person wants to work outside in a job that involves caring for animals, families can take that knowledge to the IEP team so the youth can begin learning about jobs that meet that criteria. Classes could be put in place so the youth can build skills in biology. Families can also seek work experiences or volunteer opportunities so their youth can experience the work firsthand. If a young person follows these steps and still is interested in working outside, caring for animals, post-secondary programs can be explored or job placements can be based on those interests. So studies show that family involvement is a major predictor to employment and academic success for all youth. Families can use their knowledge of their youth to help identify good job matches and to support the youth on the job. Parents can help the career planning process by sharing their knowledge of the youth's strengths and interests. For example, parents might know that their youth loves to work outdoors and that an inside space may cause their youth to be anxious. This information school staff and service providers can use to help build an employment plan. Parents may also be more in tune to a youth who's having problems on the job and can suggest some causes of the issues and provide some additional information that might help resolve the concern. Parents can also help build what are often referred to as soft skills. These skills are rooted in interpersonal communications and personal responsibility rather than technical know-how. For example, many of us grew up with the expectations that we help out around the house, chores, for example. Some other ways to build soft skills in the home include practice doing a task at an assigned time each week, dressing appropriately for certain occasions, or having the youth help with meal planning. Above all, the most valuable way families can support their youth is to have high expectations of what they can achieve. Expect that the youth with disabilities will be able to support themselves or follow their career dreams. Families should create a vision for their youth that maximizes the potential and should settle for any situation where they are not reaching that potential. You know, many of us remember scanning the newspaper classified for job openings. That method of finding jobs is quickly becoming obsolete. In fact, many job openings are not even listed publicly at all. Today, a vast majority of jobs are found through the word of mouth from a person's network or on employment searches on the internet. Every family member has a network of personal contacts that can utilize or they can utilize to identify potential work experiences, volunteer opportunities, and paid job openings for their youth. Remember, these networks also include places that people do a great deal of business with, such as grocery stores, dental offices, auto dealerships. Families are often apprehensive about whether or not a work site will be a safe place for their youth. If a family uses a personal contact to find a job opportunity, chances are their youth will be working in an environment that is familiar. Families can also use personal networks to gain support from other families or to learn about service or job opportunities. Parents who use their own networks to help with their youth's job search are being active participants in their youth's success. Often it falls on the school work experience coordinator, employment specialist, or vocational rehabilitation counselor to cultivate job opportunities for a person with a disability. Most of these employment professionals would welcome tips on potential work experience and job opportunities from families. I want to remind you once again to download those handouts. Also, we have the question pane open, so please feel free to enter a question in and we will address it right away. The resume continues to be a standard tool employers use to begin screening potential employees. The hiring process cannot even begin unless a resume is submitted. Fortunately, we don't always expect youth with disabilities to have a resume. The assumption might be that a school work experience program or adult employment provider will find a job for the youth and no resume is actually needed. The truth is that every job seeker needs a resume, including youth with disabilities. A professional-looking resume shows a prospective employer that a youth is organized and understands the steps in the hiring process. Even if a job does not require one, a resume can improve the chances of an applicant getting an interview. It is important to be creative. Many families may wonder if it is appropriate for their youth to have a resume if they haven't had paid employment. And so how do you fill out a resume without paid work experiences to highlight? A resume is appropriate for all job seekers. Employers know that a youth, may not likely have many previous work opportunities. Employers want a youth resume to show they want to work and have taken steps to be a good employment. Youth can always show different kinds or types of work experiences, including volunteer opportunities, job shadowing opportunities, informational interviews, and any relevant courses they may have taken in or out of school. Studies show that youth who have quality work experiences during the high school years are more likely to experience positive employment outcomes as adults. The best work experience is actual paid employment. Unfortunately, youth are having a tougher time finding entry-level jobs that have traditionally have provided valuable work experience. Volunteering is not a long-term solution, but one strategy to build work experience on the resume without actually having had a job is volunteering. Volunteer opportunities should be time limited, closely related to the career interests that a youth may have. Be aware that some disability advocates discourage the volunteering option because they see it as a way to funnel youth into unpaid work. However, I have found personally that volunteering can be one piece of a young adult's day. It doesn't need to be entirely volunteering. but it allows that youth to continue to build experiences and understand expectations and follow directions from adults. Volunteering shows employers that youth want to work. There could be opportunities for youth to volunteer in their communities. Volunteering is a great way to show an employer that even though a youth hasn't had a paid job, he or she wants to work. This is a point that should be highlighted during the interview process. So finally, volunteering can allow youth to try many different types of jobs, making it easier to begin focusing on a specific career path that they may want to follow. Keep in mind that volunteering is something that a parent or sibling can do with a youth, making it easier to provide any needed coaching or supports. So often we're helping our youth be able to develop some additional soft skills by being able to provide prompts or show them clearly what is needed to complete that volunteer task. So a job accommodation is an adjustment to a work environment or job duties that allow a qualified individual with a disability to perform the essential functions of a job. Job's essential functions are the duties a person must be able to perform, such as, for example, like lifting 20 pounds or be on one's feet for long periods of time. The essential functions are usually found in the job description. A qualified person is a job applicant who meets the education and experience requirements of a job description. Job accommodations open the doors for youth with disabilities to work in almost any field they want, as long as they are qualified for the job and the accommodation is reasonable. So the accommodation needs to function on a daily basis. Overhead lighting allows people with sight to see what they're doing. Chairs allow people to sit comfortably while working. So those are not really considered special accommodations. Most accommodations for people with disabilities are also basic and inexpensive. For example, a screen reading software could be used to help a person with a learning disability work on the computer. Modified work schedules can help a person whose medication causes a morning drowsiness to work at their peak times. Families should strive to understand what job accommodations are and aren't, and how to help their youth secure an accommodation if needed. So many youth believe that there are certain jobs they can't do, when in fact a job accommodation would allow them to be successful and have a positive job experience. So identifying job accommodations can begin in the middle school and can be a youth-driven activity. Accommodations are also used in post-secondary settings to help a student with a disability to be able to complete work. A family's youth may already receive occupational therapy or speech therapy in school. Families might ask if those services could help identify technologies that act as accommodations on the job. Remember, advances in technology mean that more and more accommodations are being identified all the time. Now that we've discussed the important role job accommodations play in the success of people with disabilities in the workplace, let's talk about an accommodation resource called JAN, the Job Accommodation Network. This is a free resource funded by the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Policy. The intent of JAN is to provide workplace productivity enhancements and reasonable accommodation solutions. Their website contains hundreds of fact sheets on specific disabilities and how to accommodate them on the job. Employer information and resources on the American with Disabilities Act is also available. So there might be times when a person tells an employer about his or her disability. This is called disability disclosure. People may need to disclose a disability because their disability impacts the kind of work they can do. Perhaps a person has a visible disability and wishes to have an open discussion during an interview. Disclosing a disability is necessary if a person needs accommodations to perform the essential functions of a job, or they seek protections under the American with Disabilities Act of the state's human rights law. Disclosure is a personal choice, and there's no law that says people have to disclose their disability. Families could support their young youth in helping them practice how to discuss disclosure during interviews so that the youth's strengths and skills are still the focal point. The decision to hire an applicant is often based as much on the impression given during the interview as the technical skills displayed. For example, an applicant maybe have an exceptional computer expertise that would fit a computer programmer position. But if that applicant fails to make a good interpersonal impression, chances are he or she won't get the job. So practicing the basics of a job interview, including dressing appropriately or using another acceptable greeting, making eye contact while speaking, and expressing knowledge about the interview. These are expectations of all job applicants, including youth with disabilities. It might be necessary to address the issue of disability in the interview, but it shouldn't be the main topic of conversation. Applicants could always stress the strengths they bring to the position and why they want to work for a particular business. Practice responses to the common interview questions. Remember, disclosing a disability is a personal decision. If he has a visible disability or chooses to disclose, he or she may wish to make the statements like, I have the skills to do the good job for you, and my disability will not keep me from being a good employee. A good rule of thumb in a job interview is don't offer more information than the interview asks for. Youth with disabilities should avoid offering too much information about their disability. The interviewer does not need to know what medications a person takes or even prior hospitalizations. Families also need to be aware of what an employer can and can't ask in an interview. For example, an interviewer cannot ask a person if they have a disability. You should be coached to respond to potential inappropriate questions with responses such as, I don't think I can answer that. I don't think it's appropriate, rather than, and then I'd rather really focus on why I'm going to be a good employee for you. Parents can be in a job interview if the employer allows it, but parents of youth with disabilities have no legal right to participate in the youth's jobs interviews. It's more important for the parent to work with the youth on interpersonal and self-advocacy skills prior to the interview. Securing a job is a rite of passage, and parents should allow youth to handle the interview without them. Successful job candidates know what employers need out of an employee. So during the interview, ask the employer to briefly describe his or her business, then ask the employer the series of questions to kind of fuel a discussion. So what kinds of skills or traits are you looking for in an employee? Does the person need a resume to be hired at your business? If no resume is needed, what is your hiring process? What do employers look for in the interview process? If a person does not have work experience, what can they do to improve the chances of being hired? What other interpersonal and personal responsibility skills do you think are important to be an employee and be hired and work in your business? Let participants ask questions if time allows, and the employer is willing. Keep in mind that the employer won't have all the answers, and the questions specific to disability may not be something that they're knowledgeable about. Monitor the discussion closely. At the end of the interview, thank the employer for his or her time and reinforce people with disabilities need to demonstrate the same qualities as person without disabilities. They need to demonstrate that they will be an asset to the business, have the necessary skills, and will bring a good attitude to work. Working for somebody else is not the only employment option for youth. Many people in this country choose to work for themselves by starting a small business. This is overlooked, yet an appealing option for youth with disabilities. Self-employment allows a person to work doing something that they are talented in or truly love. The size of the business can be very small, and there are programs available such as the PASS program, which is the Social Security PASS, that can help people get started. You want to work with vocational rehabilitation and finding out more information about the PASS program. Allow family and friends to help. Some small businesses are more family owned. They're likely to run out of a person's house, allowing friends or family to provide support in terms of helping with the actual work or assisting a youth with various tasks. Families may enjoy the ability to participate in the business as a family activity. This also may be a good option for a rural area. People that live in more isolated or rural areas may have even more limited opportunities for employment. The PASS program does require a viable business plan. So it's important to understand, what requirements are necessary in order to even apply and what the expectations are for the person with disabilities as well as their supporter. This is an example of a Nevada success story. Kaylin Kelderman of Reno and her family have created a micro enterprise called the Kelderman Classy Glass. And so Kaylin is designing jewelry and other pieces so that she can sell them in trade shows, and she's doing it through glass fusion. And she's created mini glass pendants, and her interest is still very strong there, and she continues to build her business and create while her parents support her by handling some glass cutting, drilling, and wire wrapping. Many of the attention of the session has been focused on providing strategies that help youth with disabilities find employment. Once a youth finds a job, though, the challenge moves to keeping the job. So teaching youth that regardless of age or disability, the number one reason people lose their jobs is they don't show up for work. Employers expect employees to arrive and leave at their assigned times. If an employee cannot make the assigned shift, it is expected that the employee will call to inform the employer. Many feel that they do not have to do this and may not be bothered if they'll be absent. So they're still kind of thinking in that school mode, that if I don't go to school, that I don't have to call and tell someone. But as an employee, it is important that you let someone know if you're not going to be able to attend to your shift. Another reason you struggle on the job is they're not used to taking work direction and they don't feel a need to interact appropriately with fellow employees. So once again, they have to understand that they're going to be told what to do, and it's not a situation where someone is going to stand over them until they do it, like it might be if they're in school and the teacher is standing over them to complete an assignment. So they would need to be using appropriate work ethic and work responsibilities, such as not being on their cell phone or not socializing too much or talking too much. It's also important that they would understand that they would have to act appropriately and with a high level of politeness to customers or others that are calling on the phone. One of the other challenges that youth with disabilities might have is some kinds of transitions or things that change at work. They might have difficulty if there's not a good predictability, whether or not they're moved to a different office or a different place in the building. All of those things could impact the youth with disabilities' ability to adjust and be able to perform their duties. So families can build a support system at work. Many work environments actually function as mini families. Coworkers can look after and help support each other. Youth with disabilities can benefit from this environment by building a support system, within their workplace. The communication regularly. Families that get to know the youth's coworker and supervisors can encourage open communication so workplace problems can be addressed early and then therefore avoided before they become this big problem. These are kind of natural supports. Many times an employer recognizes that a youth is really a youth and that they're still growing and maturing and that they may not have all the skills and that their family's support and influence can make a difference of whether or not they can change a behavior or stop acting in a certain way or learning how to accept direction or change. So building relationships with employers and job coaches can keep this from happening. Also recognizing sometimes it just doesn't work out. Despite everyone's best efforts, not every job is going to be a good match. If the person with disabilities actually feels as though that he's either not welcome or it's becoming somewhat hostile, it's probably not a good match. The employer hasn't recognized the value of having a person with a disability and the diversity that it brings to their business, and it's probably better just to move on. One of the things, though, is that like every experience that we have in general, we like to learn from that experience. So it's important to help the youth with disabilities learn about some steps they could take so that they're not repeating something that may have contributed to the problem with that particular job or position. Other ways that families can help youth with disabilities, they begin the job search is helping them practice fill out these job applications, helping them be able to complete them, and so that they would appear that there's enough information and that they're not somehow messy, or if the person that's filling out the application, the applicant has perhaps some kind of a reference sheet so that they know how to answer questions and be able to use some consistent information. Also planning for transportation. What is going to be the plan? How is the person going to get there? What do they need to learn as far as transportation schedules, or how, for example, to obtain paratransit services? What kinds of additional training do they need to understand the system so that they can do a better job with it? Also want to consider disability management, any kinds of medications, or again, those accommodations that they might need to manage the disability on a day-to-day. We want the person with disabilities certainly to take their medications, not forget or stop taking medication even once they take it home for any reason. So continuing to take good care of themselves, getting enough sleep, being able to certainly know how to access the restrooms at the work site, all of those kinds of things. Also to encourage post-secondary education. Many times for persons with disabilities, the education ends after high school. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to consider doing some post-secondary education. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we have that question pane open and are ready to take questions and are happy to follow up with additional information or help that a person might need to learn more about this topic. Again, we're very pleased to have you as part of our webinar, and we hope that you've been able to gain some additional information. We encourage you to visit our website, nvpep.org. Again, we are covering the entire state of Nevada and hope that we're finding you to be healthy and to consider employment, and certainly want to give additional support and help if you need to access one-stop centers or vocational rehabilitation, or even understand a little bit more about job coaching and what that provides for persons with disabilities. Many of the staff, including myself, my daughter does do competitive integrated employment, and we've worked hard to help prepare her for that type of work. And so she is working in the community and receiving that federal wage. And she continues to learn and understand more each day about her responsibilities and what she needs to accomplish to be a good employee. Thanks again for being part of our webinar. Please download those handouts, and we wish you well. Stay healthy. As we often say, wear a mask, and have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.